365, shake my hand. Good evening today. Today I'm doing this in the evening. Good evening, everybody, to the podcast, Money Heist Podcast, 365 Money Heist Podcast, where we deal with all things financial, wealth creation, but we always get the thinking right. Getting the thinking right creates atomic habits that create possibilities of actually creating the life or the wealth that we want. And in this particular season 1 of the podcast, we are looking at the science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. And I tell you, it's one of my favorite books to start any year with. For the last 4 years, since I got my first copy of the book. Interesting principles that we've been dealing with. Today, I would like us to do chapter 9 and chapter 10 together. All right, so if you're just starting on this episode for the first time on our podcast, please go all the way back to episode 1 because we've been going through this book chapter by chapter. By this coming Sunday, I think it'll probably be like the 17th of January or I don't know, so somewhere along there, we will be done with this book, which means it's very possible for us to do definitely 1 book per month, but sometimes 2 books per month, which will double your level of operation. Your level of operation is based on your level of knowledge. Your level of knowledge is always going to grow if you read. So that's why we've got the podcast going, guys. Right, so we did chapter 8 yesterday. And I'm sorry I couldn't drop this episode first thing in the morning on Spotify. I had one of those mornings where routine met procrastination, met tiredness, met daily life chaos, school, like it was just a chaotic morning. But discipline prevailed, a chapter a day, no matter what happens in your life, right? So I do apologize for those of you who thought it was going to drop in the morning. The YouTube version of this episode is going to be delayed by a day because I'm only filming this right now at about 9:10 in the evening after a long day. So it will take me forever to get the edits in and upload. But first thing tomorrow, I'll upload this on YouTube and also tomorrow's episode on YouTube. So just please look out for that. I appreciate you guys for being patient with me. Right, so we did chapter 8 the last time we spoke, and chapter 8 was the how, and I kept emphasizing this. We have to follow the how, right? If someone says, I have the science of how to get rich, our first question in our mind isn't, is this real? Is this true? Is it even possible? Because that plants the seeds of doubt. Why venture down this path if you don't believe? Why not fully believe, fully invest in the ideas and see for yourself? So, if you'll excuse me, there we go. So yesterday when we're looking at chapter 8, episode 7, he started to really talk about the how. And for the first minute of our reading today, I want us to give us a very quick summary of some of the things we spoke about. Number 1, when you try to impress your wishes upon the thinking substance, remember that it must be done by a coherent statement. By now, if you're following the podcast, let me make it clear. There should be 2 things that are happening in your life concurrent to, stay in tune and listening to Spotify or watching on the YouTube channel. Number 1, you should by now have a gratitude journal. You absolutely should have a gratitude journal because we covered the importance of this in chapter 7. We spoke about how gratitude is probably the only way one can maintain a harmonious relationship with the thinking substance. When we spoke about a lot of things, so please make sure you've got that gratitude journal going. Number 2, you really need to pay particular attention how difficult it is for you to remain thankful. That's okay. You have to I want you to go through how tough it is. How tough it is to just take the time to write 5 things you're grateful for in the morning and 5 things you're grateful for at night. See how starting a new habit is, because later on when we're talking about money habits, our next book by decree from my old man. One day I'm going to play your voice. And my father sent me the best voice note 2 days ago. He found out that I was doing this, and he was like, definitely read one of the books he gave to me. I think I was turning 18 or 21, Richest Man of Babylon, and that's a must read, and I completely agree with him. So it's our very next book. It's our very next book. In this next book, sorry about the dog, we're going to be really dealing with this idea of the richest men in Babylon. But these things are going to keep adding. So the rules, the universal principles of riches, they're going to just keep growing and growing and growing. So please keep track. Right, so how to think in a certain way. You must impress upon yourself or upon the thinking substance and remember that it must be done in a coherent statement. Right, so this is from the previous chapter. You must know what you want and be definite. So you have to work on those specific desires. Be goal-orientated. You can never get rich or start the creative power into action by sending out uninformed longings and vague desires. And remember, here I'm currently dealing with the previous chapter. Now, all you need to know, right, in terms of what to do, I'm just jumping into yesterday's chapter. He says all you need to know what you want and you need to want it badly enough so that it will stay in your thoughts. Spend as much of your leisure time as you can in contemplating your picture. Right, so these are like very key things just to remind us about how grounded we need to be in our decision making. All right, so now let's focus on today's chapter, which is chapter 9, how to use the will. Right, how to use the will. And again, like I said, today we're going to do 2 chapters because chapter 9 is about how to use the will, as usual, quite short, so it's fine. And chapter 10 is about the further use of will. So I figured, both these episodes would go, hand in hand together in one episode than to separate them, because I'm sure there are a couple of things that you want to get all at once. Right, so let's start now. To set about getting rich in a scientific way, you do not try to apply your willpower to anything outside of yourself. You have no right to do so anyway. It is wrong to apply your will to other men and women in order to get them to do what you wish done. It is flagrantly wrong to coerce people by mental power as it is to coerce them by physical power. If compelling people by physical force to do things for you reduces them to slavery, compelling them by mental means accomplishes exactly the same thing, right? So you can't manipulate. You remember in the previous chapter, I spoke about forget about this idea of competing, become a creator, right? So the only difference in the methods, if taking things from people by physical force is robbery, then taking things by mental force is also robbery. In principle, there is no difference. You have no right to use your willpower upon another person, even for his or her own good, because you do not know what is for his or her good. The science of getting rich does not require you to apply power or force to any other person in any way whatsoever. There is not the slightest necessity for doing so. Indeed, any attempt to use your will upon others will only tend to defeat your purpose. You do not need to apply your will to things for them to come to you. That would simply be trying to coerce God and would be foolish and useless as well as irrelevant. You do not have to compel God to give you good things any more than you have to use your willpower to make the sun rise. You do not have to use your willpower to conquer an unfriendly deity or to make stubborn and rebellious forces to do your bidding. The thinking substance is friendly to you and is more anxious to give you what you want than you are to get it. My little brother used to tell me this a long time ago. He used to say, bro, the universe is crying, is begging to give you what it is that you want. And my little brother was, way ahead of me in many ways when he came to, rightful thinking a couple of years ago, and I appreciate him for that. Now, to get rich, you need only to use your willpower upon yourself. When you know what to think and do, you must use your will to compel yourself to think and do the right things. That is the legitimate use of will in getting what you want. To use it in holding yourself to the right course. Use your will to keep yourself thinking and acting the certain way. Do not try to project your will or your thoughts or your mind out into space to act on things or people. Keep your mind at home if you can accomplish more there than anywhere else. Use your mind to form a mental image of what you want and to hold that vision with faith and purpose. Use your will to keep your mind working the right way. The more steady and continuous your faith and purpose, the more rapidly you will get rich, because you will make only positive impressions upon the formless substance. You will not neutralize or offset them by negative impressions. The formless substance receives a picture of your desires and allows this picture to penetrate into the great distance, perhaps throughout the entire universe. As this impression spreads, all things are set moving towards its realization. Every living thing, every inanimate things, and the things yet uncreated are stirred toward bringing into being that which you want. All force begins to be exerted in that direction. All things begin to move toward you. The minds of people everywhere are influenced. The minds of people everywhere are influenced toward doing the things necessary to fulfilling your desires, and they work for you unconsciously. But you can check all this by starting a negative impression in the formless substance, right? So you can double check this by starting a negative impression upon the substance. Doubt or unbelief is a certain to start a movement away from your faith, from you, as faith and purpose are to start one toward you. By not understanding this, most people fail when they try to make use of mental science to get rich. Every hour and moment you spend giving heed to doubts and fears, every hour you spend in worry, every hour in which your soul is possessed by unbelief sets a current away from you through the whole domain of the intelligent substance. I mean, this is so important. I'm just going to have to highlight, every time I over-highlight a book, I have to buy a fresh new copy. So, all the promises are unto them that believe, and unto them only. Notice how insistent Jesus was upon his point of belief. Now you know the reason why. Since belief is all important, it behooves you to guard your thoughts. And as your beliefs will be shaped to a very great extent by the things you observe and think about, it is important that you focus your attention here. Here the will comes into use, because by means of your will, you determine the objects of your attention. If you want to become rich, you must not make a study of poverty. The things are not brought into being by thinking about their opposites. Health is never to be attained by the studying of disease and thinking about disease. Righteousness is not to be promoted by studying sin and thinking about sin. And no one ever got rich by studying poverty and thinking about poverty. Medicine as a science of disease has increased disease. Religion as a science of sin has promoted sin. And economics as a study of poverty will fill the world with wretchedness and want. Do not talk about poverty. Do not investigate it or concern yourself with it. Never mind what causes are. You have nothing to do with them. What concerns you is the cure. Do not spend your time in charitable work or charity movements. All charity only tends to perpetuate the wretchedness it aims to eradicate. I do not say that you should be hard-hearted or be unkind and refuse to hear the cry of need, but you must not try to eradicate poverty in any of the conventional ways. Put poverty behind you. Put all the patterns, put all that pertains to it behind you and make good. You cannot hold the mental image which is necessary to make you rich if you fill your mind with pictures of poverty. Do not read books or papers which give accounts of the wretchedness of the tenement dwellers or the horrors of child labor. Do not read anything which fills your mind with gloomy images and wanting suffering. You cannot help the poor in the least by knowing about these things. The widespread knowledge of circumstances of the poor does not tend at all to do away with poverty. What tends to do away with poverty is not the getting of pictures of poverty into your mind, but the getting of pictures of wealth into the minds of the poor. You are not deserting the poor in their misery when you refuse to allow your mind to be filled with pictures of that misery. Poverty can be done away with by not increasing the number of well-to-do people who think about poverty, but by increasing the number of poor people who succeed in getting rich through the existence of faith and purpose. I just want to stop and talk, but let's just finish the chapter. The poor do not need charity, they need inspiration. Charity only sends them a loaf of bread to keep them alive in their wretchedness and gives them an entertainment to make them forget for an hour or two. But inspiration will cause them to rise out of misery. If you want to help the poor, demonstrate to them that they can become rich. Prove it by getting rich yourself. Get rich. This is the best way you can help the poor. The only way in which poverty will be banished from this world is by getting a large and consistent increasing number of people to practice the teachings of this book. The people must be taught to become rich by creation, not by competition. Every person who becomes rich by competition kicks down the ladder by which he rises and keeps others down. But every person who gets rich by creation opens a way for thousands to follow him and inspires them to do so. You are not showing hardness of your heart or an unfeeling disposition when you refuse to pity poverty or to think or talk about it or to listen to those who talk about it. Use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of poverty and to keep your mind fixed with faith, purpose, vision of what you want. And that is the end of chapter 9. May I just, my goodness, get into this. You know, the last page of chapter 9, page 51 of the book, I know there's going to be a controversial passage of reading. A lot of people might jump the gun as to what he's trying to say. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just give you my interpretation. Number one, but number two, my application of this, because this has become a very big part of my philosophy. Why am I doing a podcast, right? These are my books. It's for me. I'm a financial markets educator. So the more time I dwell in this information, the cooler the cooler, the better, the more clear I am in communicating wealth building to people. That's what I like to do. For the last 3 years, like I've been saying, it's a big theme in my life, a big change. I have been breaking one of the big financial rules, swapping time for money. So everything of mine was very low cost, if not free, discount upon discount. And the reason for that was I genuinely just want to get my material out more than I want to make a living off it, right? So right now, as a trading instructor, I cannot make a living of what I am charging or for the amount of work I do, right? But I must be careful about that because I started to do it out of pity. Right, I started to think about the poor people who want to change their lives through Forex trading and crypto trading. And oh my goodness, if only they could find a good course and I can make it as cheap as possible. And for many people, that was awesome. That opened the door. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. But I'm simply saying what he's saying for the bigger picture is if you think you can change. First of all, let's start with you as a human being. If you don't have what I call mental blocks, specifically what I love to say firewalls. Every time people in my inner circle start to talk about things that I believe will trigger what I am very focused on this year or focused on last year or focused on in my goals, because I make my goals very public. Right, so if you follow me on social media, you'll have seen by now, I've already told you how much I need to make by the end of the year. I'm doing that for various reasons. It puts good enough social pressure, it creates transparency and accountability, but also it's a quick reminder that people are watching. So for me, it gets me going every day, gotta hit that goal, gotta hit that financial goal. But because that's the goal, I have to protect my mental space. So I generally cut people up. It's extremely rude sometimes, but I genuinely, out of love, will cut someone up if they if I can tell that their own mind is spiraling, oh my God, what are we going to do? This dream is too big. Are you sure you want to do this? Leroy, yeah, you're really good trader. You know what you're doing, and you can make money off the markets, but this big, I move you around from my team. For 6 months, I put you in a different project because I genuinely believe in the power of thought process, maintaining that consistency than anything else. So that's why I use affirmations. I got to affirm myself. I have to keep the certain thinking aligned with the formless substance. And what he's saying here is you're not going to change the status quo of poverty in your life and of course in the life of other people if your mission in life is always to investigate poverty, moan about poverty, look deeper into poverty this, because the result of that is you become what you think about most of the time. You don't become what you want. You don't become what you will for. You don't become necessarily what you wish list for. The end result is what you are going to become is going to be directly proportionally linked to what you mentally project. There's a favorite quote in the Bible: out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth shall speak. I know what people are about based on my conversations with them within the first 10-15 minutes. If you're a stranger to me and it's the first time I was sitting down, I know where to help you if you need help. But I also know when to realize I cannot help you because it takes this. I have to be in your life for a very long time. My general principle is 365 days of just following our content, renewing your mind, checking out how we trade, the podcast, getting these books. 365 days is a target. It's if you were to do this new way of doing things, adjust your thinking to this new way of thinking. If you're a trader, start to trade specifically this way, at least for a year, out of the fullness of your heart. I'm hoping by then you'll have been saturated. You'll have been convinced that there is no other way. Until then, I can't change your life in 10 minutes, right? I'm not a miracle worker. And so what he's saying is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you believe, right? You cannot change the structure, the status quo of poverty, of a poverty-ridden mind, by dwelling more on the situation, on its appearance. What you have to do is evolve. You have to swap it out. You have to mentally start to create it in here. Wealth. There's no bread. Well, there's always going to be bread in my future. I can see it. It sounds dumb, guys. It sounds not realistic. It sounds unfeeling. It doesn't sound practical. But if you make that your religion, and by religion I mean something that you do routinely, you will see a change. Remember, there is a reason why a lot of people never attain whatever it is their definition is wealth. It's because there's a specific way of doing it, and this is the specific way, right? And he is quite clear, in his defense, because now I'm going to defend what is very clear to say. He's not talking about having a cold heart. He's not talking about not caring about people's issues. He's saying, understand that at the bottom of that long story, that I promise you is not that unique to most of our lives. And I did say in the previous episodes, thank God it's not that unique. Thank God that most of us generally start hard and it's never easy at the beginning, because it reminds us that it is not a uniquely Leroy's punishment. It's just the nature of life, and what's unique is getting out of it, right? So that's what we should be focused on, right? So if you don't mind, guys, there's still a lot of time there. I can see there's time. Let's do chapter 10. Chapter 9 sets the scene. We've got, sufficient principle of reason. The main point is you have to start to align your willpower to shift every conversation in your mind to be aligned with the particular thinking that is going to help you create wishes, which is aligned with the formless substance, which is harmonized by the power of gratitude and cemented by an unmovable faith. And the idea here is, he says it in the first pages of this chapter, that look, man, every single thought, if I can find it quickly, Every single doubt, every single hour and the moment you spend giving heed to doubts and fears, every hour you spend in worry, every hour in which you're so possessed by an unbelief sets a current away from you through the whole domain of the intelligent substance. My little brother has got his own YouTube channel, by the way, Diary of a Monist. And he gets, and I did say this guy is a monist, so my little brother gets deeper into monism, neuroscience. He's not really a trader, he's really just more, he just attracts things like he's. Then my other little brother he's a trader. But my point is, my little brother, when he talks about this kind of stuff, he always emphasizes the fact that at the end of the day, you generally, your mind is like a field, an empty but very fertile field. Whatever you plant in it grows. It honestly doesn't matter. Number one. Number two, what I learned from my little brother, by the way, which is the last thing, then we get into chapter 10, is that you will always get what you want. So let's say you want to be rich and you want to get wealth. Doubt and all these random thoughts competing with good thoughts, competing with thinking in a certain way. What those thoughts do is, they don't necessarily cancel out the possibilities of you creating wealth, but what they do is they extend the continuum of when you're going to get it. So all of a sudden your life is so tough and you had to suffer for the first 60 years of your life before you could make your first million. That's it. Because during the process of creating your world in the mental space, you were also undoing your own work. And so what he's talking about here is what I like to really call a fire hole. And that fire hole is your willpower, right? So chapter 10 is further use of the will. Further use of the will. You cannot retain a true and clear vision of wealth if you're constantly turning your attention to opposing pictures, either external or imagery. Do not tell others of any past financial troubles. Do not think of them at all. Do not tell anyone about the poverty of your parents or the hardships of early life. To do any of these things is to mentally class yourself with the poor for the time being, and this will certainly check the movement of things in your direction. Let the dead bury the dead, as Jesus said. But poverty and all things that pertain to poverty, put them completely behind you. You have accepted a certain theory of the universe, right? You accepted a certain theory of the universe as being correct and resting all your hopes of the happiness of it being correct. What can you gain by giving heed to conflicting theories? Either you believe or you don't believe. Either you're doing things in a certain way or you're maintaining the status quo. The two can't coexist. Do not read religious books which tell you that the world is soon coming to an end. Do not read the writings of mockers and pessimistic philosophers who tell you that it is all going to the devil. The world is not going to the devil. It is going to God. It is a wonderful becoming. True, there may be many good things in existing conditions which are disagreeable. But what is the use of studying them when they are certainly passing away? When the study of them only tends to check their passing and keep them with us. Why give time and attention to things which are being removed by evolutionary growth, when you can hasten their removal only by promoting the evolutionary growth as far as part of it goes? No matter how horrible their apparent conditions may be, in certain countries, sections, or places, you waste your time and destroy your own chances by considering them. You should interest yourself in the world's becoming rich. Think of the riches the world is coming into instead of the poverty it is growing out of. And bear in mind that the only way in which you can assess the world in which growing rich is by growing rich yourself through the creative method and not the competitive one. Give your attention wholly to riches, ignore poverty. Whenever you think or speak of those who are poor, think and speak of them as those who are becoming rich, as those who are to be congratulated rather than pitied. Then they and others will catch the inspiration and begin to search for their own way out. because I say that you are to give your whole time and your mind and thought to riches. It does not follow that you are to be a sordid or mean. To become really rich is the noblest aim you can have in life because it includes everything else. On the competitive plane, the struggle to get rich is godless scramble for power over the people. But when we come to the creative mind, all of this is changed. All that is possible in the way of greatness and soul unfoldment of the service and lofty endeavor comes by way of getting rich. All is made possible by the use of things. If you do not have physical health, you will find that its attainment is conditional on you getting rich. Only those who are emancipated from financial worry and who have the means to live a carefree existence and follow hygienic practices can have and retain health. Moral and spiritual greatness is only possible for those who are above competitive battle for existence, and only those who are becoming rich on the plane of creative thought are free from degrading influences of competition. If your heart is set on domestic happiness, remember that love flourishes best where there is refinement, a high level of thought, and freedom from corrupting influences. They are to be found only where riches are attained without strife or rival by exercise of creative thought. I repeat, you can aim at nothing so great or noble as to become rich. You must fix your attention upon your mental picture of riches to the exclusion of all that you may tend to dim or obscure your vision. You must learn to see the underlying truth in all things. You must see beneath all seemingly wrong conditions the great one, life ever moving forward toward fuller expression and more complete happiness. Just a quick hack, and I've touched on it many times, but I'm going to keep saying it until in my spirit I truly believe that every single person listening is doing it. Apart from the gratitude book, you need your affirmations. You need your goal. You need that one thing that stays in your pocket that you're fixated on. What's the practical way of keeping your mind focused on that thought? I mean, you can't just read a book like this and then just think it's going to automatically come to you because you've read the book. The book is telling you, keep your mind fixated on getting rich. Well, what's that to you? Do you have that defined to the core? Do you really know what rich is to you? Do you know the number of what rich is to you? You have to, and then write it down. Don't only just write it down, read it out loud, guys. It is the greatest spin to have when your mind. Let me tell you what I do. And I was going to put this in one of my trading videos in the next war rooms, right? So something, and I'm going to walk them more deeply, right? I'm going to talk about subconscious programming. I'm going to show you guys what I do when I sleep. I'm going to talk to you guys about hypnosis. I'm going to give you guys the tapes for free for your 365 trader. I'm going to drop that in the remote course and all those kind of things. But here's a life hack. I can't sit for long because of my back. I used to do mixed martial arts. Well, I still technically do military jiu-jitsu specifically, and I had a terrible back injury. And so my chiropractor told me that sitting down for too long is actually not a good idea for me. So I try to remember to get up every 30 minutes, and honestly, I fail. So I normally get up every 3 hours, 3 hours, give or take. And when I do that, when I get up every 3 hours, I do jumps, so I do something physical. But at 4 or 5 p.m. I'll take a walk. I'll walk the dogs, I'll walk myself. And what I've done at the beginning of every year, and I promise to explain this properly in one of my war room videos where we have a lot of time, is I read my affirmations out loud, maybe into a tape recorder like this or into my cell phone. I'm recording my cell phone on the YouTube channel there, out loud. So I voice record it very clear, and that's an audio file I keep in my phone. Now, if you're technologically savvy, what you can then do is to add a harmonic sound with a specific frequency, that taps the subconscious mind for better retainment. Or you don't have to do all of that. You just record your affirmation out loud. And whenever I'm walking, taking a break from working, apart from reading physically my affirmation card every single day, when I'm walking, it's me. I'm talking to myself. I'm listening to that affirmation on continuous repeat, right, every single day, because I am making sure my mind is fixed on that mental thought. So if I'm a trader and I have a loss today, I don't want that loss to start to create a picture of the final imagery of what my career could be, which is a series of losses. I want to remind myself that at the end of the day, come losing trades today, come losing trades tomorrow, at the end of the day, my target is this amount of money. Therefore, I'll achieve it. Period. I don't care how many trades I have to lose along the way. There's this famous TikTok video where the boxer goes, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday I will be champion. And it's like, you think it's like, just TikTok, but that I literally watched that boxing match with that Mexican guy. He literally became champion. He literally lost until he became champion. And so that's what your mind needs. You need to feed this garden consistently, and I find that hack to be amazing, just having that your actual affirmations recorded, so that there's a time of day where you're reading them out loud to yourselves, very much so in the morning, please, when you wake up. Try very much so when you sleep, so you can just do both your gratitude journal and your affirmations in the morning and at night, right? The affirmation cards, you got to read them a bit more just to quickly accelerate the neural connections receiving that information in your mind. You have to. My little brother just dropped in a brilliant video about the part of your brain, right, that actually controls your belief system and how to kind of like work on that. So it's a brilliant video. If I remember, I'll kind of like put it somewhere up here on the YouTube, but if I don't remember, please do remind me now, and I'll send everyone a link, right? So please, this is very important, right? So let's finish chapter 10. We've just got about 2 more pages left. Now, moral and spiritual greatness is only possible for those who are above competitive battle for existence, and only those who are becoming rich on the plane of creative thought are free from the degrading influences of competition. If your heart is set on domestic happiness, remember that love flourishes best where there is refinement. I repeat, you can aim at nothing so great or noble as to become rich. You must fix your attention. Right, so that's the whole point of what I was saying earlier on. You must fix your attention upon your mental picture of riches to the exclusion that may tend to dim or obscure your vision. You must learn to see the underlying truth in all things. You must see beneath all seemingly wrong conditions the great one, life ever moving toward fuller expression and complete happiness. It is the truth that there is no such thing as poverty. There is only wealth. Some people remain in poverty because they're ignorant of the fact that there is wealth for them. These people can best be taught by showing them the way to affluence in your own personal practice. Others are poor because while they feel that there is a way out, they are too intellectually indolent to put forth the mental effort necessary to find that way and travel it. And for these people, the very best thing you can do is to arouse their desire by showing them the happiness that comes from being rightly rich. I mean, if you look at social media, it's pretty much built around this, right? The people with the most followers in the world are the rich. They have to be famous and they have to have a lot of money for them to have a lot of followers. And what they then do is the rich people propaganda, right? And it's got its pros and cons, but my point is this is pretty much a basic olden day principle, right? So the rich people have a platform, and some people get inspired. Some of you are inspired by rich people, and that's fine. Some of you are inspired by financial freedom expressed in the way that so and so expresses it, and that's perfectly fine. You know, that's kind of like all he's saying here is that at the end of the day, if you're not where you want to be, it is because of the sum total of your thought process. Others are poor because while they have some notion of science, they have become so swamped and lost in the maze of metaphysics and occult theories that they do not know which road to take. They try a mixture of many systems and fail in all. For these, again, the very best thing to do is to show them the right way in your own personal practice. And an ounce of doing things is worth a pound of theorizing. The very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of of yourself. You can serve God and your fellow humans in no more effective way than by getting rich. That is if you get rich by the creative method and not by a competitive one. Another thing to assert that this book gives in detail the principles of sciences of getting rich, you do not need to read any other book upon the subject. This may sound narrow and egotistical. However, there is no more scientific method or computation in mathematics than addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. No other method is possible. There can only be the shortest distance between 2 points. There is only one way to think scientifically, and that is to think in a way that leads by the most direct and simple route to the goal. No person yet formulated a brief or less complex system than the one I am describing here. It has been stripped of non-essentials. When you begin this method, lay others aside. Put them out of your mind altogether. Read this book every day. Well, we are. Keep it with you. Commit it to memory. I hope you are. Do not think about other systems and theories. If you do, you will begin to have doubts and to become uncertain and unwavering in your thought. Then you will bring negative thought to the formless substance. After you have made good and have become rich, you may study other systems as much as you please. But until you are quite sure that you have gained what you want, do not read anything else on this subject. Expect the authors mentioned in the preface. Only read the most optimistic comments on the world's news, just those that are in harmony with your picture. Also, postpone your investigations into the occult. Do not dabble in spiritualism or kindred studies. It's very likely that the dead still live and are near. But if they are, let them alone. Mind your business. Wherever spirits of the dead may be, they have their own work to do and their own problems to solve. Last page. We have no right to interfere with them. We cannot help them. It is very doubtful whether they can help us or whether we have any right to trespass upon their time if they can. Let the dead and hereafter alone. Solve your own problem. Get rich. If you begin to mix with the occult, you will start mental cross currents, which will surely bring your hopes to a shipwreck. Lastly, this is the preceding chapters have brought us to the following statement of basic facts. He's going to combine our favorite quotation from all the other chapters we've read and some new stuff. So this is now the new favorite quote of the book, the whole thing. I'll start now, and it's the last paragraph. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspace of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imagined by the thought. A person can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. Now, here's the addition. In order to do this, a person must pass from the competitive to the creative. He must form a clear mental picture of the things he wants, and he must hold this picture in his thoughts with the fixed purpose to get what he wants, and the unwavering faith that he will get what he wants, closing his mind against all that may tend to shake his purpose, dim his vision, and quench his faith. And in addition to this, we shall now see that he must live and act in a certain way. So we finally covered thinking in a certain way. Now we've got to develop acting in a certain way. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of chapter 9 and chapter 10 of the science of getting rich, attracting financial success through creative thought. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I thoroughly did. A part of me feels like I'm just going to quickly just in bed, just reread the last 2 chapters. just to get some more take homes from it. But fundamentally, this man is clear. He is clear, and he's also quite clinical. He's clinical and extremely disciplined about his approach. He's got zero compromise. Once again, since he's telling us there's a certain way of doing things, we don't want to nitpick what we take from him. We don't want to take a little bit of this but leave other things. We want to think about getting rich, but it's okay to be realistic about your life situation. And he's been realistic. And even there's no money right now. So why can't I say there's no money when there's no money? Because he's told you there's nothing like poverty. There's only wealth. You have to take him step by step at 100% until you can prove that this doesn't work. And the only way to prove that this doesn't work is for you to thoroughly get lost in it, to completely absorb it, and then go try it as it's laid out. And then you'll have your proof. Ladies and gentlemen, until tomorrow, I appreciate you. I'm pretty sure tomorrow we will have a podcast in the morning as usual, bright and early, 5:30 a.m. Normally that's when I try and get these ones done so that you can start your day with tomorrow's episode. I do apologize for sending this late tonight, but I didn't want to skip a day. I really don't want to skip a day. If it's avoidable, I'll do my best every single day to make sure we do a chapter, right? Looking forward to finishing this book and also soaking in the information and starting to structure our lives around it. But anyhow, my name is Zero James, my Siri, 365 head trader, shake my hand. Thank you so much for joining me on the YouTube. Thank you for streaming this on Spotify, Anchor. I appreciate you guys. If you're a trader, subscribe to the channel. If you're not a trader, subscribe to the channel. But traders, another war room is going to drop tomorrow. Look out for that. You should see what I've done to our master traders spreadsheet. There are more pending orders. I've already started to fill in there. I've started to build our signal running orders for the year. And I'm going to show you why this is so important. How $10 can start to accumulate. Because some of you always have that mentality that a small account can't grow. No, you are struggling to grow a small account right now, but small accounts can always grow. I'm going to show you how that's done. Right, shake my hand, everybody. I appreciate you. See you tomorrow. Have a good day. Peace.